Okay, Ricky Flex, it's time to draft. And we are going to be drafting teen comedies. To clarify here, we're looking for like high school age teen comedies. We're not going like freshman or sophomore year in college. We're talking about mainly the high school experience or maybe like during the summer of a high school experience. That is the priority here. Before we jump in, Ricky Flex, I just wanted to ask you, like, what makes a teen comedy so good? What do you look for, and what makes them so rewatchable?
The coming of age relatability of it. Everyone goes through this. Maybe not to the same extent or say like one for one comparison, but everyone goes coming loves a coming of age story. Everyone experiences one in their own way. That's why there's so many different types of coming of age stories. They're so relatable, and at the end of the day, they're they're usually very funny, and they feature breakthrough performances, either in the lead or a
Mm.
supporting role. And I think that's always something that you could come back to when you're revisiting a movie. So, again, like I know off the top, I said it's one of my favorite type of genres, and that's part of the reason they're rewatchable because of those factors I said. And I think as we go through this, we might see like a wide range of years, decades, and I can't wait to kind of get to jump in to see where you kind of fall and in what decade is probably your favorite. Is it your decade that you grew up in, or is it going to be a different decade that you relate more to? It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's why these are so fun to rewatch is like you can watch one from the 80s, you can watch one from the 90s, the mid 2000s, or the 2010s, and they're going to depict the time period that they're made. And I like how you said also they feature like breakthrough performances because the actors are so young, usually in like their earlier mid 20s playing high school characters. You know, sometimes that's one of the funny aspects of it that they're older people past college playing high school kids. Usually they have good soundtracks. You know, they usually have great needle drops, and that those are usually like the most memorable moments of the movie. Usually those songs help depict the time period as well. Like for American Pie with like the punk rock or pop punk type of scene, like those songs being made, or you'll get like a nice throwback like needle drop, okay, like we saw in Bottoms. Um, Something also I noticed when I was making my list of films here, uh, it's the teacher or the adult that's usually like great comedic relief. Almost all these movies have that. Um, Usually in a way where it's like either the parent or overbearing parent or like the teacher that is overbearing at the same time, or they go in the opposite direction, the teacher that's inappropriate and the one that connects with students in like inappropriate ways or has more of a personal connection to them. Like I think that's a commonality as well. So let's do this, Ricky Flex. Do you have a coin?
As always,
I will be choosing tails as always. So why don't you flip that bad boy and then we'll get started.
is heads.
Okay, Ricky Flex, you choose where you want to draft, first or second.
I'll take the first pick.
Okay. So it's up to you. First overall pick, teen comedy draft. What do you got?
This is one of my favorite movies of all time. One of my favorite comedies of all time. It's got to be Super Bad. Super Bad, just mid 2000s. That's like my bread and butter. Just entering my teenage years, and I do think this is one of the best comedies of all time. So it's got to be up there for teen comedies. And again, we talk about breakthrough performances: Jonah Hill, Michael Cera, even not breakthrough, but kind of like cementing Seth Rogen, not just as an actor, but also behind the script, behind the pen, with an Evan Goldberg, and you have a Bill Hader mixed in here. All like this movie has it all. And yes, we always talk about nowadays we're looking for the next super bad, right? Like we can never get back to that era because that era is like not accepted anymore. But we still have this movie. We still have to recognize like, yeah, we recognize this greatness. So super bad for me is my 1-1.
Yeah, this was 1-1 for me as well. I would argue it's up there with maybe part one or two of the greatest comedies of the 21st century, alongside Anchorman, probably. You know, I think this movie. It's you talk about breakthrough performances for actors. Like think about Michael Cera, and you think about Jonah Hill, and you think about Emma Stone, and you think about how early on in their careers and what those three end up accomplishing. But and then I mentioned what they usually have here is like that adult figure that's looked at maybe has an inappropriate relationship with younger kids. The two amazing cops, Bill Hader and Seth Rogen, with a McLovin. McLovin, one of the most iconic teen comedy characters of all time. I think McLovin's had a hard time, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, of like uh kind of like elevating after this movie, because a lot of these teen movies, some people get stuck in that role forever and they are always recognized as that character. That is Christopher Mintz-Plasse with McLovin.
Okay, so what's it gonna be?
I am McLovin.
Um, but yeah, easily, like for me, the 1-1 pick, and also came out at time for us. Like I'm 13 or 12 when this movie comes out, and this is a movie where you want to see it, you want to sneak into a theater to see it, or you want to get it at a Blockbuster, right? You want to rent it as early as possible. It's that old. Blockbuster's still kicking a little bit. Netflix hasn't taken off yet. Streaming services haven't taken off, but this is the one where it has the trope of these guys want to get laid before college, but also it's about them getting booze. It's raunchy, and it's at the perfect time to be a raunchy teen comedy in 2007, right? I think it was just like a perfect timing, and it's like right at the beginning of that Apatow boom, that's like transitioning from like the frat pack with Will Ferrell into like this Jonah Hill era alongside Seth Rogen and a Michael Cera. You know what I mean?
Right before like this kind of kickstarted like for Pineapple Express that would come out and others,
Right. 100%. Okay. Easy 1-1 pick. And now it goes to me for the second overall. And I'm going to pick an older one. I'm going back to 1982. I'm going back to 1982. The best teen comedy from that era, in my eyes, is not a John Hughes film. The best teen comedy, aside from Superbad ever, is Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Fast Times. This is an older movie, so maybe like someone listening to this, we have a younger demographic that listens to this podcast. I highly recommend Fast Times. If you want to see Sean Penn act so unlike Sean Penn, you need to see him play Jeff Spicoli. Jeff Spicoli is not only one of the greatest characters in teen comedy history, but cinema history, right? Flat out hilarious. Him with that also, right? That adult figure that we're talking about, Mr. Hand, that's one of the best dynamics ever in a comedy, right? Mr. Hand is so serious, but also the funny, like alongside Spicoli, probably the funniest character. The soundtrack is unbelievable in Fast Times. Unbelievable. Talk about capturing the moment from late 70s into the early 80s. You think about Kashmir playing in the car. Then you got the cars moving in stereo in one of the horniest scenes of all time, but also is perfect for a teen comedy, right? It has like I love like that time in music where you have the dude selling tickets, selling tickets to the Cheap Trick concert. Like I could see why our dad loved this movie growing up, because I think it captures the music scene amazingly. This movie, famously written by Cameron Crowe, one of my favorite directors. So to have him, former Rolling Stone writer and guy who toured with bands, writing this, I think it perfectly encapsulates and connects the music of the time to the film. Also, intro to not only Sean Penn, but Forrest Whitaker in this. First, he's going to shit. Then he's going to kill us. Let's go. Fast Times. Ricky Flitz, are you shocked with this first rounder?
No, I know you love this movie. I know you love this movie. This is a borderline, like, this is top 10 for sure. Spicoli's great. Mr. Hand's great. Did you bring enough to share with the class, Mr. Spicoli? Like,
yes.
Like, this movie just hits up between that relationship and with Spicoli. And, like, when you look at Sean Penn now, like, you don't think of, like, Fogel we just mentioned. He will never live that down, that character. Like, Spicoli, like, that's like a character you think, like, oh, like, Sean Penn, like, we'll always know him for that. It's like, no, this guy's going to go on to win multiple Oscars and, like, be nominated a bunch of times. It's just, like, completely, like, revolutionized or changed his career trajectory here.
All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
But at the time, phenomenal. I will say, just to kind of rein it in, the reason why it's not as high for me, just the whole abortion avenue.
Gets a little real.
It gets really real. And it's just like total ends of the spectrum. We have a Spicoli who's coming out of the smoke-filled weed van. Like we have the banging soundtrack. We're just lightheartedness. And then we just get the most real, like some of the biggest subject matters you could get in a teen movie. And I don't think that balanced out well in my eyes. But it is a great classic. If you haven't seen it, it is phenomenal. But for me, it's just not as high as you.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see, like I talk about like comparing 80s to like Superbad era to like Fast Times. And Fast Times, I like it because it's not sugar coated. It's not what you see with John Hughes a few years later. I think the real part of it is what separates it from the other 80s comedies, right? Like the other ones are just about young love and they eventually end up together. Like Fast Times, things don't always end up like great for these characters, right? It is more real, and that's why I like it. But also, it's flat out hilarious, and it has the soundtrack. To me, it was just an easy number 2 pick. Moving on, second round here, Ricky Flicks, third overall. It's hard to like rank these movies because they're so rewatchable. And I've seen them a zillion times. I can't do back-to-back 80s movies. So I'm going to go with a favorite of mine. I'm going back to 1999. I'm going American Pie with the third overall pick. This might not be, compared to some of these other films, a masterpiece, right? It's not like a perfect piece of cinema, but I think it perfectly defines that era, that soundtrack, that pop punk type of vibe. Iconic characters up the wazoo, whether you go from Stifler, whether you go to Finch, whether you go to Stifler's mom, whether you go to Jim's dad, such unique characters for a teen comedy. It's not always about the kids themselves. You got the scene stealers, like I just brought up. This movie, this was my favorite movie trilogy until like middle school. Dark Knight comes out in 2008, and then Dark Knight Rises like 2012. That kind of steals the spotlight. But American Pie to American Pie 2 to American Wedding, I think American Pie is the best out of the three, and that's obviously the high school version of this. Although American Pie 2, I think it might be even funnier. This starts a whole cliche of teen comedies, kids, group of guys making a pact. We're having sex before college. It gets redone time and time again. And we just saw it with Bottoms. We saw it with Booksmart. We see it not necessarily Booksmart, but similar type of vibe.
Similar.
That's actually more of a play on Superbad, I guess. But like Superbad, you could say is ripping off
Exactly.
American Pie as well. You know, it just seems like everything comes back to American Pie for like these horny high school kids, you know? So yeah, that's my number 2, excuse me.
Yeah, this is my number 3 on my big board. This is the playbook. You know, this is the prototype for a lot of the movies that come after it. And you mentioned the cast: Stifler, Scene Stealer. Again, like Jason, like I love how we like now it's like 24 years since this movie. Like all these guys or these characters in this movie recognize the greatness of it and how like this is kind of most of their peaks, you know, and they accept that. And they're open to talk about it on set, talk about the pie, like the classic pie incident. And like, I think most of these people, like on interviews, on podcasts and everything, they just know like American Pie. We know what it is. We know who we are. And they just accept that, yeah, this is like the kind of like peak of our careers, but also one of the tops, like best teen comedies that's ever been done. And I love that. And for me as well, soundtrack, got to mention the soundtrack. Phenomenal. We mentioned earlier in the pod. Fantastic soundtrack. And Sean William Scott coming out recently saying like he doesn't get paid for this movie. It's just wild to me.
Or he didn't get paid when it was made. That's what the thing is. Like, I don't think they understood that this movie was going to be a massive hit. There was no real big names when this movie came out. Like Sean William Scott was a no name, right? Jennifer Coolidge, you might have recognized in a couple different projects.
Henry Rowan Gardner. Like,
yeah, everybody else is pretty unknown, I would say, aside like Casey Affleck makes a cameo, obviously, but I think just by voice in the first movie. Yeah, and it's extremely quotable. And I think the only person that really almost like rose to prominence after this was Chris Klein. And he did a couple movies, late 90s, early 2000s. You might remember him in Just Friends, you know, as I think his name's Huey, or he's like the basically the love interest of Amy Smart, like where you have Ryan Reynolds trying to swoop in, right? Yeah. But yeah, no one else really did anything after it. This is what they become known for, and then it leads to they make American Reunion. I think they're making American Pie. I think they might make a fifth one, if I recall. I don't necessarily want to see that. I think I just want to relive the glory days with the first three, and they kind of deteriorate over time, I guess. Even though they still have the comedy, the comedy still pretty much hits. But I think like the time of American Pie being made in 2023, I don't think you can capture the same magic. It's just not possible in this day and age.
Yeah, I think the two people that you could really call out that kind of like rose past this was Eugene Levy and Jennifer Coolidge.
Yeah,
and they both did it late in their careers, the past few years, with White Lotus for Jennifer Coolidge and then Schitt's Creek for Eugene Levy. You know,
interesting. Yeah.
So
And then American Reunion,
yeah,
they start a relationship.
exactly.
Wow, that is weird to think about. Okay, that's my second rounder. What's yours?
Yeah. Speaking of quotable, I'm gonna go back old school, 1993, cult classic, Dazed and Confused. This is my number two. I love this movie. Richard Linklater firing on all cylinders. This one also has deep themes, but not approached as upfront as like we mentioned in the Fast Times. I think also breakout performances here as well. Matthew McConaughey, Wooderson, being the main guy here, as in not like main breakout. And you have other people that make splashes, like a Ben Affleck's here out of randomness, like a 7-year high school guy. But like Wooderson now looking back is one of the all-time movie characters, in my opinion, supporting characters. Um, it's just very quotable. All right, all right, all right. You got a joint? No, it'd be a lot cooler if you did. Just so quotable. And all this movie just fires on all cylinders. Yes, it is over the top, but it works as well. It's similar to like a Bottoms that we talked about. So 1993, Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, and I was just making a list here, Ricky Flicks. I think I have the Mount Rushmore off the top, off the dome here of teen comedy characters. Okay, are you ready to hear my Mount Rushmore?
Ready?
Wooderson, right? Dazed and Confused, Matthew McConaughey on the Mount Rushmore. Spicoli, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Sean Penn. Third, McLovin, right, from uh, Super Bad. And then fourth, Stifler, American Pie. Four, like the most eccentric comedy characters that I think will live on forever. I think those are the core four.
Core four. I have a fifth that we might talk about very
Okay.
soon. That
So
might have to break that.
yeah, like those guys are just like the weird outsider, eccentric, like character performance, from those movies that I think have spanned for decades. You're right. Like the coolness of a Wooderson, you forget how creepy the character is because of how cool
Exactly.
which is weird. Like it's literally the most cringe thing of that. This would not be made in 2023. And I think this movie made in 1993, written like it's different from other teen comedies because a lot of them are set in the year that they're made. This one's 1993 about like the 70s, you know? And I think Richard Linklater was really I don't know, he's just really well versed in the 70s. He was like suited to make a movie about, right, 70s high school because he lived it. And I think the soundtrack is superb. And my favorite part about Dazed and Confused, it's so we talk about like the purpose of these movies, like American Pie, they want to get laid. Super Bad, they want to get this booze. That's their mission. This one is just a one day, right? Last day of school, like 1976, and their whole purpose is they're kings of the school now, right? How are we going to transition? It's not really looking forward too far in the future. It's not the classic conversation of like what's going to happen when we all go to college. It's more about I cannot wait to be a senior in high school, right? I'm going to do what I want. It's reflective of the time period like we talk about, right? Almost like this guy is the quarterback. Everyone wants him to play football. He's like, nah, F that, I'm just gonna have a great time. I'm gonna be with my friends. It's just a different type of vibe, and I think it's perfect for the 70s. I love this pick. I think I had it at it was like 5 or 6.
Yeah, but yeah, and going back to the Wooderson creepiness is like you're saying about the quote. Like that's the thing I love about these high school chicks. I keep getting older, and they keep staying the same age. Like
Yes.
it's just so cringe, but like great quote.
And like that, one of the greatest needle drops, dude. It's like him entering that
game
hall
game
to the
hall.
Hurricane with Bob Dylan. I'm just like, damn. Like there's a few cooler scenes, and I don't know. It's just he has this magnetism about him that like takes away the creepiness. But when like you really think about it, you're like, God damn, like this would never be made today. Good pick, Ricky Flex. Now you are up with the third round.
Okay. Just because I have, we haven't. You picked Fast Times, 1982. I feel like we need to pick a John Hughes movie at some point. And I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna lean on performance here. I'm gonna pick Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's for me. That's my favorite. Matthew Broderick as Ferris Bueller. The look, the vest on, phenomenal. You got the car. You got going through Chicago, twist and shout. Don Shane has the moments. Yes, maybe, and Cameron's a good supporting character. That kind of he is the vibe killer definition, but the Gordie Howe jersey, it all works. For me, Ferris Bueller is like Save Ferris. For me, like I can imagine growing up in the '80s and like that movie coming out, and just like every high school kid wanted to be Ferris Bueller. That must have been really cool. But end of the day, that's my third pick, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Dude, even I wanted to be Ferris Bueller when I first saw this movie, and I didn't grow up in the '80s. Like he just seemed like the coolest guy. But he was interesting because he wasn't a jock, right? He was just cool, and that's kind of like hard to capture, and that like does show like Matthew Broderick, like amazing performance. Like I just believe this guy is the coolest guy to ever live, and he could get away with anything. He can kind of scheme his way out of any situation, and whether it's like pretending to be Abe Froman, whether it's him like tricking his parents when he's sick, I think it's interesting because like Matthew Broderick, he's gone on, he's had success in other movies, but nothing has ever topped Ferris Bueller. And when I see him, even when he's like 60 years old today, I think of Ferris Bueller. There's no getting away from the role, and that is a curse. But also, you're known as one of the coolest high schoolers of all time. So I don't think it's that bad.
And like even Alan Ruck, he's kind of like doing well, getting away from it now, getting away from the Cameron Fry character being in Succession.
Connor Roy,
like he did a pretty good job now with Succession. That kind of saved him. But also you keep bringing up the older funny guy, Ed Rooney, the principal in this, trying to like catch Ferris Bueller. He's done this one too many times. He's got to catch him. And again, this is very quotable as well. Like life moves too fast. Once in a while, you guys like stop and take a look around. Things like that. Very quotable. Again, just hitting on all those teen comedy beats, coming of age stories. And also Sloane, Mia Sarah, during this movie.
Rocket.
A huge crush for me when I was a kid.
Rocket.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So
like she was incredible to look at. And this movie, I would say like the most used yearbook quote of all time, right? Life comes at you pretty fast, right? And whatever. That's probably the most used in yearbook history, I would say.
It's up there.
This movie gets real too, but in a really good way. Like with I almost said Connor Roy.
The car.
The car sequence. Ooh. And then the focus on Alan Ruck's relationship with his father and the intense hatred, and that's like the high school angst that's captured in that movie. It's one of the most real, I think, a John Hughes movie has ever become. And I would argue that Cameron might have been the best performance in the movie, dude. Like he was also incredible in Ferris Bueller, and he might also like be on like right outside that Mount Rushmore for supporting characters in teen comedies. Like he's one of the most I guess noteworthy, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of at the time. And also like this is covering like a guy, like when you think of teen comedies, it's like inside the school, or like it's something revolving around inside the school. This is like skipping school, the cool aspect, like a cool aspect, and it's just not stereotypical.
And it captured it, but you can get away with skipping school a lot more in the 80s, right? So It's like that's where it's like you believe that it could happen a little bit, or like you hear stories about like, oh, your parents tell you the time that they skipped school, they played hooky. No one plays hooky anymore. It's easy to track down a kid. They could just look up their location. The parents get like a phone call when they skip school, so they ask where they are. They stay in the house. Like it just doesn't happen nowadays. So this is like another movie that's like from the time period. Like it's very specific to it. So that was I think it was my number 4. I had it right after American Pie. Great pick. All right. Next, third round, latter part of the third round becomes tough because this one that I'm about to pick, it's more modern day. 2012, I believe. And it's one that the kids aren't in high school, but they're going back to high school. It's one that has 2 great leads with Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill. Third round, I'm going to go with 21 Jump Street. This is one of the at the time where comedies were starting to die, they leaned on the idea of let's take these two people from a different generation, put them into high school and see how high school has changed. And 21 Jump Street was way ahead of the curve in terms of like wokeness, like that is in high school. How different it was from like the jock generation to like the more inclusive one in high schools today. And also, it's so good at being ahead of the curve in terms of making fun of reboots, remakes, really leaning into it and making it like its identity, right? That we're criticizing it, but we're also going to give you laugh after laugh. We're going to give you extremely charming performances. 21 Jump Street is like just the best. It's absurd, not to the point of bottoms, but it does have like these guys who are cops at a high school, and then like they are at least to an insane third act that is just so insane. I don't know. It's just crazy. But 21 Jump Street is my third round pick.
This movie was like when I was in high school. 2012. I think I was a freshman in high school, and this movie came out, and I remember our older brother Big Mike and his friend Eric. Shout out Eric, listener to the pod. They're like, "Oh, like we want to see this movie. You should come." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." But I wasn't. I think this is rated R. No.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Real quick.
So I was like 14, so I could not walk in with them. So I remember staying back, buying a ticket for Wrath of the Titans, Sam Worthington's sequel to Clash of the Titans, and then sneaking in to see this movie. And I remember the guy coming around with a flashlight in the movie theater saying like, "Where are your tickets at?" But I sat in between Big Mike and Eric, who's like 6'3" or whatever. So it's like, oh, like they look older. I'm cool. And I got away with it. And I saw this movie in theaters, and it was an awesome theater experience. So funny. It's what I mentioned. Like, I wish I got with Bottoms that you got, like that movie theater experience I got with 21 Jump Street. All the themes that you mentioned, all the things that you mentioned, played so well the first time. Phil Lord, Chris Miller, now kind of known for Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse. But again, they were hitting on all cylinders here. And also
R-rated.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to sneak in there. And then also I just mentioned too, like yes, like we similar to Bottoms that we were talking about, two lead performances that are very good. Jonah Hill, Channing Tatum, good chemistry between the two, but a good supporting cast.
Oh yeah.
You know, you got a Rob Riggle, just scene stealer. You know, shot me in the dick. You have a Dave Franco playing that woke high school non-sport, non-jock, but kind of runs the school leader. A Jake Johnson flashed in here, Nick Offerman flashed in here, and they even pay homage to the show that this is kind of ripping off and doing a satire of with Johnny Depp and his partner, I forget his name, who starred in the show. You know, that this is based off of. So this movie was hitting on all cylinders. I love this movie. Great pick.
Yeah, and then like Brie Larson, like it's like kind of the launching point for Brie Larson. 3 years from now, she wins an Oscar for Best Actress for Room. So that's nuts. Ellie Kemper just showing up in here from The Office is nuts. But yeah, the best part about this I think is the meta-ness and how it's not only like playing off what traditional teen comedies are and like how now Jonah Hill is the cool guy and the jock Channing Tatum is somehow not. It's like making fun of how that culture has changed, but just like the meta part of, yeah, this is a remake of a TV show that's kind of like a cult TV show. And even having Johnny Depp, right, showing up again was cool. And Ice Cube, probably the funniest he's ever been.
Ice Cube. Yeah.
Probably the funniest he's ever been. But yeah, so that's my third rounder. Let's keep on moving here. Kicking off the fourth round. Now we're flying here, Ricky Flex. Oh, this gets so hard. Man. So I have one. I have Fast Times from the 80s, American Pie from the 90s, 21 Jump Street from the 2010s. I am missing one from the 2000s that I definitely have one in here. But yeah, I'll take it. I'll get more well-versed here. I'm going to go with Mean Girls.
Oh, damn it.
Off the fourth round.
Damn it.
I think this is it's not slept on because like everyone knows Mean Girls. Everybody knows Jingle Bell Rock. Everyone knows Regina George and Lindsay Lohan. But I think it's undersold on how funny this movie actually is. And if you haven't seen it in a long time and you return to it, you forget how like raunchy this movie is. It's a lot raunchier than you remember. And I don't think a high school movie has captured cliques better than Mean Girls, right? With the burn book, you got you got the jocks displayed here. You got the popular girls. You got the mathletes. You got the gays, and you got the theater kids. I think it does a good job shining light on all these different cliques and how no one intersects and everyone has their job, like as a social structure that is high school. And breakthrough, obviously, not only like Lindsay Lohan, but like Rachel McAdams, like breaking through here. Amanda Seyfried is in here as well. Tina Fey as that teacher that makes connections with their students. The principal, I forgot the actor's name, the black guy that's in every Adam
Yeah.
Sandler movie. God damn it.
Tim
yeah,
Meadows.
Tim Meadows. Yes, him. I think he's great here. I think this one, it's just awesome at showing it. I think it really captures the mid 2000s really well. And it's in that era where it comes out the same year as Anchorman, but it's the teen comedy. So it's raunchy, just like Anchorman is, but for like teenagers. I think it's an awesome movie. One of the funniest I've seen from the 21st century. So Mean Girls, fourth round.
Yeah, I would have taken this with one of my next two picks. Again, like early 2000s, 2004. We talking all these like coming of age stories. None of them really focused on women. It's kind of like was the start of that. And you mentioned all the breakout performances, and you have Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, SNL fame, having like very minor roles here that kind of bring legitimacy to a comedy as well. And then take a look back, the weather girl here, Amanda Seyfried, like just casually playing the last kind of posse, part of the posse and the popular clique, So yeah, this movie is so freaking funny and so rewatchable, and very 2000s. I would say also very 2000s feel. So it's kind of nice rewatchable there as well. Great pick.
It's a nice nostalgia pick. In Wednesdays We Wear Pink has got to be one of the most like commonly quoted like teen movie lines of all time, right? Wednesdays We Wear Pink, Jingle Bell Rock. How do you not think of Mean Girls when you hear Jingle Bell Rock? It just comes with the territory. And there's that other song, like whenever they watch Aaron Samuels Walking, there's this absolute banger of a song. I forgot what it was, but that is the most 2000 song of all time. I'm gonna look it up while you introduce your fourth round pick, but you'll know it when I say it.
Yeah,
might be Michelle Branch song. Might be a Michelle Branch song.
Not everywhere.
No, it's like "And I Wonder," like that song.
I could
And
fall
it had
into.
No, not Vanessa Carlton.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's 2011 or something.
But it has like that. It has like the. I don't even know what the instrument they use for it though. It almost sounds like chimes a little bit. You'll know when I play
I don't know. All right, you put me in a tough spot. Because I already got an 80s pick, I got a 90s pick, I got a 2000s pick. So this might be a little bit of a reach, but I'm gonna take it here just because I want it on my board. I'm taking Project X.
Yeah.
This is a total different spin, like kind of a documentary type of movie here, and it has a great soundtrack that we talked about, and it's with people that like Miles Teller. Yes, he's in the movie, but he's not like huge yet. This is before Whiplash. Not really stars in this movie. Probably the most recognizable character or actor in this movie besides Miles Teller, for the time, is probably freaking the small person in this. So not very recognizable actors. So this movie really was again right when I was entering high school. Everyone's like, holy crap, Project X. This is a revelation, box office success. Love this movie. I'm gonna take it here.
This was when I was growing up the movie to sneak into. Everyone wanted to see Project X, like underage when you weren't 17. It's the ultimate high school movie for high schoolers that was not able to be seen by high schoolers, right? It has the high school documentary type of feel to it. That's perfect. It's got the best needle drop of all time with The Pursuit of Happiness. It's got, I would say, someone just outside the Mount Rushmore of teen comedy figures, Costa, right? Long live Costa. JB, also incredible in the supporting role. The two security kids, like there's so many great like small roles in this movie that will just have you cackling. It's so totally absurd and totally over the top, but it's just like, hey, you see so many movies that center around the teen party, right? That has drama that happens at the teen party. What if the movie just was the teen party,
Exactly.
and you just make it as crazy as possible, and you just lean way into it. And who cares about like the character development? Who cares what this character starts and ends by? This is just mindless teen comedy movie that is just fun. I had it. I think it was like around number 10 on my list, so I love the pick.
Yeah, and like it very very funny movie in general. Like Costa like ask him out, so bring your glove. We could have a catch.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
give me back my gnome.
Oh my gosh.
And then like it also has that like holy crap, I wish our parties were like that in high school. Like the swimming pool bit with the sign. And it goes, oh no, tops off, and it actually happens. It's like the stuff where like you dream it and it actually happens. You see it on the big screen. It's like, wow, that is unbelievable. How well portrayed it was, and also in that documentary type of style filmmaking, very well done.
Yeah, this movie was a rite of passage. Like when you had to see it to understand like going to college. Like this is like almost like it's one of the great pregame movies. Like if you just put something on in the background, like you and your boys, like before you go out on the weekend, and you just have Project X in the background, and every once in a while you turn it up for the soundtrack, and you have Beamer, Benz, and Bentley playing in the background. You're like, let's go, boys. Or Pursuit of Happiness drops, and you're like, okay, now we're into it. Great pick. Okay. So are
Yeah,
you
I
up?
got one
Yeah, you're
more.
up. You got your fifth round.
I got my last pick here. So I already got a John Hughes movie. I don't want to have two on my board. I want to keep it diversified. And I want to try to keep it in high school. You know, it's because there's a bunch of ones here where they're high school coming of age stories, but at the same time, it's like you don't really get that high school feel to it. Um, so yeah, we'll see what you say about this pick because I don't know if you'll view it the same way. It's more of a rom-com. 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yep, I had it just before Mean Girls, but I wanted a 2000s comedy. It's a good pick.
Yeah, I love this movie. I know PKO guest for the rom-com draft, top billing. She's gonna love this pick. This I think captures high school so well as well. Uh, it captures high school really well. And yeah, you got Heath Ledger here, rest in peace. But Julia Stiles is great as Kat Stratford here. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, kind of a breakout performance for him. And speaking of Oppenheimer, David Krumholtz as well.
Yeah.
Kind of that like that Mount Rushmore we were talking about. He's not in it, but he's just on the outside as Michael in this. Very good in this as well. Very funny. And yeah, this is similar to like not trying to get laid, but trying to go to the prom, get that date to the prom, and then you have that bad boy Heath Ledger, and paying him to like kind of date Kat Stratford is a hilarious move. Great to see on the big screen. That chemistry kind of blossom here. I love this movie. I think now people realize how good it is, but I think like 10 years ago, like you mentioned 10 Things I Hate About You, people be like, what's that movie? Now everyone kind of knows it. So my last pick, 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah, not only one of the best teen comedies, but I think one of the best rom-coms in recent history, I guess the last 25 years. It's amazing when you look at the roster here, right? And you think about what these actors went on to be, Julia Stiles, what she goes on to do. When you think of JGL, and you think of Heath Ledger, and like you think about how talented this whole group was. And I think that it has also that dad performance from Larry Miller that he steals the show. Him wearing the pregnant suit to send the message to his girls. That's so funny. One of the best like teen villains that looks the part with Joey Donner. I think he is just one of the biggest scumbags in teen movie history. He fits the mold immaculately. Like he just is there. Has one of the best needle drop moments in teen movie history with I Can't Take My Eyes Off You with Heath Ledger walking the bleachers. And I thought he's just by far the best performer in this movie. And you watched him, you're like, this guy is an absolute rock star. Like this guy is just going to be special. You just knew it from watching this movie. And he's not even one of the top billed, I think, in this movie. And it's just like, I was wondering when I was a kid, I'm like, who is this dude? And then like, that's like early 2000s. Then like watching what he ends up doing later on, Brokeback Mountain, right? And then Lords of Dogtown, and then Dark Knight, just what could have been, obviously, and what was, and then Monsters Ball. This movie has a lot of heart too. Like it's just it's kind of heavy. You know, it's just sorry, I just got a text that distracted me. But it's got a lot of heart by the end of it, like her reading the poem at the end and then like them getting together at the end. I was like, it's one of the few times it was like cliche, but also it's like two like people that you never thought would be together from such different worlds. It was just a fun movie. Cool. Now it's fifth round. Now it's me, Mr. or Mrs. Irrelevant. And I don't have a John Hughes movie. And I think I'm going to keep it that way. I think I want to do uh, one of my favorite movies growing up. And it's not the most acclaimed, uh, but I'm happy to have it on my board. It's The Girl Next Door.
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
Yeah, Alicia Cuthbert, right? Childhood crush. Emile Hirsch. I thought he was going to be the next Leo DiCaprio after this movie. Young Paul Dano, like WTF, like how is he in this movie early in his career? But it's so absurd, like with like the porn industry connected to like a high school kid, but it's just like a zero to hero type of movie. You root so hard for Emile Hirsch in this one. Yeah, I think there's just some nostalgia that is playing into my heart a little bit here. I was gonna go something like generic, like The Breakfast Club, but like The Breakfast Club, I think is super cliche. It's so overplayed. I'd rather go with something I want to talk about, and that would be Timothy Olyphant as the villain, right? And yeah, and like I said before, I thought after watching this, Emile Hirsch was going to be the biggest star of all time, the biggest of A-listers, and that's kind of subsided now. But definitely, I'm happy to have The Girl Next Door as Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, this movie's slept on. It only made $30 million at the box office.
Cult classic. It's cult classic.
Is it?
Yeah, I think people like this movie, dude.
I throw it on the streaming Rex once in a while, and now that we're talking about it, I'm gonna throw it on this weekend. No one ever watches it, man. Like
I don't know. Like I feel like our age, like people like The Girl Next Door. Oh my God, what like people remember that movie? Yeah.
Like, okay, all right. I think I don't know. It might be just on different. Like this is like a better version of Sex Drive, which came out during a similar time. This is just a better movie. But I again, like I'm glad you picked it. It's on my honorable mentions. And yeah, like you have the cliches, Breakfast Club. I'm more of a fan of the Breakfast Club than you, clearly. But Girl Next Door is like that 2000, was it 2004?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the 2000s. You have a Mean Girls that same year, and you're about to get super bad. This kind of got lost in the sauce a little bit, lost in the mix, and it shouldn't have because it's a great movie. So good pick.
Yeah, this movie could have been even raunchier, The Girl Next Door, especially with coming out in 2004. And it's like this porn star who is dating this high school kid, this nobody. I think this is a movie for the nobodies. It's for those kids who weren't popular, but always dreamt about getting like the girl of their dreams, and who the girl next door, and happens to be the girl next door as a porn star. It's just I think it's a great concept for a movie. It's kind of ridiculous, but I think it's kind of entertaining. It's something that you don't see usually. You actually kind of goes with Cruise, Risky Business a little bit. I feel like they're in the same family, like same concept. But yeah, the girl next door. I think I don't know. Maybe it's just people our age, that watch it. I think it's I find myself, if I have to choose between The Girl Next Door or The Breakfast Club, I'm gonna watch The Girl Next Door. That's just the way I view it. I think that might be just me.
Generations too.
Yeah. Okay. So honorable mentions here, Ricky Flex. We brought up Breakfast Club. What else do you have? And we brought up Sex Drive. I don't think that was making the list. But
yeah, no. I think that's similar to Girl Next Door. Let's see. I thought you were gonna pick this one, Booksmart.
Yeah, I don't know, because that is like the new wave super bad. I don't think the teen comedies hit like they used to. I think they are more concerned with being inclusive, showing different, like almost spinning off the traditional tropes of a teen movie. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think Booksmart worked. Okay. I don't find myself returning to watch Booksmart.
Yeah. All right. You're always a big proponent of it. That's why.
Olivia Wilde, I think, also has soured on me a little bit over the last couple of years. So I don't know. It's just, I think maybe we anointed her a little early after this movie. And yeah. And she had the sophomore slump. So
Yeah, we'll see what she does next.
huge
Also, I
one.
thought
I was gonna say a huge one. Speaking of like Booksmart, it's like Lady Bird. It's like Lady Bird is gonna be one people are gonna be like, oh, that's
not
a
funny
great
enough.
teen comedy. It's like I don't. It feels very self aware. It's a little bit over the top, like not to the extent of Bottoms, but obviously Greta Gerwig, Saoirse Ronan, Lucas Hedges, Timothée Chalamet. It's got an incredible cast and incredible director to go along with it. But it's I don't know. I actually think Booksmart's funnier than
Yes,
Lady Bird.
yes. Lady Bird's a great movie, but we're drafting teen comedies in the likes of Super Bad. Like we're drafting 21 Jump Street. We're laugh out loud
We're
throughout the
trying to
entire
laugh.
movie. Lady Bird, I don't know. For me, I think has its comedic moments, but it's more a movie, a good movie than a comedy for me.
Yeah. You were gonna say something else?
I'm actually a little surprised too. I remember growing up when this movie came out. You were a huge admirer of this movie, Napoleon Dynamite.
Dude, I don't know. Like it still is hilarious. It feels very unique compared to every other teen comedy or any other movie, dude. Like Napoleon Dynamite. That's talk about one of the that was like that's not really a cult classic. That was big when it came out, but it felt like it should be a cult classic. Um, I think it was made by independent film studio. It feels like it was.
I think so.
John Heater probably I think never shook Napoleon Dynamite either. And
Yeah.
yes, interesting music, not your traditional needle drops, you know, definitely out there. And yeah, no, this was like a cult movie without being a cult movie in a lot of different ways. And Uncle Rico is an all-time character. And the dance
Vote for
sequence
Pedro.
is one of the best dance sequences in movie history. It definitely deserved to be drafted. It's not exactly my cup of tea. I liked it, like, I guess when I first saw it, but like, it's a little too weird. You know, it's a weird movie.
Yeah, the vote for Pedro, like you have the shirts going around. That definitely had like a huge following around that. But yeah, like I think that movie's kind of fallen off. Everyone kind of realizes, yeah, this isn't a great movie, but you got to acknowledge its greatness, the dance scene and like the vote for Pedro phenomena, things like that.
Yeah, and his dad, and his relationship with Laquanda, is that her name again? Shaquanda,
Something like that.
something like that. Oh my gosh, ridiculous movie, but funny. I'll throw out another one. Not another teen movie. I think was a good one. But that's just making fun of all the other ones we drafted, and we talked about a movie that kind of was doing that with Bottoms already, so I kind of didn't want to repeat it. Breakout for Captain America, Chris Evans, and certainly a rewatchable movie, certainly a hilarious one. Definitely in that age of kicking off the spoof movie era, right? In the early 2000s to mid 2000s. Definitely, I think just deserves to be mentioned here. I also have Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure to go to the 80s.
Yeah.
We watched this a lot with our dad. It's not capturing the high school experience as much. Yes, like it's about like going I guess it it doesn't take place in the high school. It's about high school kids, right? And their adventure, obviously, but it's not like in the hallways of the high school. It's the Wild Stallions, it's like the school, like the battle of the bands and stuff like that you get like in some high school movies, but it's not about actual high school.
That's what I was referring to in my last pick. I was like, do I pick some? I want to keep it within the high school realm more. And like this, like they're traveling through time. Like it's not really affiliated with the high school whatsoever. It's just about high school kids. So I kind of
Yeah.
wanted to pick
Just the
something.
main characters are in high school.
Yeah, but the movie's phenomenal. I do love it.
Yeah, no, it's great too. Something I wanted to pick that is a new age one, but it's not about the kids, is Blockers. I wanted to pick that, but it's about the adults. That's why you can't pick it for teen comedies, because like the adults are the best characters.
John
trying
Cena.
to trying to shut down their kids. Like to me, that's
Like
a great
Parenthood.
concept and great way to flip the teen comedy. So funny. So it was like Blockers came out, I think, similar to like the year that Game Night came out. For some reason, I always connect those two for whatever reason. They're like big studio comedies, but just weren't seen by a lot of people. And like it seems like over time, people are starting to realize how funny those movies are.
Both 2018.
Yes. What else you got? Anything?
Old school pick again. Not too old school. Euro Trip. One of the greatest cameos of all time, Matt Damon. Sky Doesn't Know. I sometimes listen to that song if I'm in a great mood and just want to like pump myself up a little bit. Sky Doesn't Know. And again, going to Europe before they go to college. One last trip, trying to find this girl. Classic. But again, over the top. We want not draftable, but an honorable mention because that movie's a fun watch.
Yes, a fun watch, and I'll just list a couple more. Bring It On, Bring It On. Kirsten Dunst, early days, right before Spider-Man. Gabrielle Union, um, Spirit Fingers. Come on, like that's iconic moment. Clueless is one that like the girls will be upset with us and all Paul Rudd fans. 16 Candles to go more John Hughes realm. Never Been Kissed, also Drew Barrymore, late 90s. And that's also similar to like 21 Jump Street inspiration, someone from the outside, older, investigative, like going into a high school, that type of perspective. But that's all I really got.
Yeah, I guess just a couple. You mentioned Risky Business. Like I have that poster, iconic poster.
Sorry.
An iconic scene with the underwear dancing scene, old time rock and roll, Bob Seger. So and Tom Cruise. So thought I mentioned that, and just to list a couple others. Juno, that was like a Lady Bird type of pick. If you
funny
pick.
one, yeah, funny. I like Juno.
Juno. I think a big cult one is Varsity Blues.
I'm not a fan,
but it's a big cult one. You mentioned Better Off Dead. And Easy A, I Love You, Beth Cooper. Those are like C-list, but still like good.
Easy A,
it's a little
Easy
better.
A considered drafting with the Mr. Relevant spot. Easy A, I don't think it's C. I think it's B. B plus. Yeah. I think it's a good movie. And that was like Emma Stone really breaking out. Like she was in Superbad. She wasn't like the scene stealer in Superbad, but it's like, okay, maybe we got to pay attention to her. Easy A was her teen comedy where she was the lead, and it became a commercial hit, a critical hit, and it showed that she could lead something, right? And like Zombieland, I think, was at a similar time as well. Easy A was, I think, one where, and it was good because it was like the Scarlet Letter, right? That's like the main inspiration for that movie, and like a book that's read by every high schooler, right? So everyone like understands the story, how she takes on like, it's almost like, I don't know, female empowerment type of movie a little bit, but also hilarious and a little bit self-aware. Easy A is a great one. I haven't seen it in a while.
That's a good movie.
Yeah. All right. So that does it for the honorable mentions. Let's go through the draft one more time. Ricky Flicks for the best teen comedies top billing draft. He has Superbad, Dazed and Confused, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Project X, and 10 Things I Hate About You. Dr. O has Fast Times at Ridgemont High, American Pie, 21 Jump Street, Mean Girls, and The Girl Next Door.